Hey, everyone out there, Dan here, aka the Comic Concierge, and I'm going to do something I don't typically do or have not done a lot with this channel and do a good old-fashioned comic book haul, basically grown-up show and tell, although it's not even grown-up show and tell, it's just show and tell, and go through some of the comics that I recently picked up throughout the last few really months in a way, getting them from different places, some unique, some surprising. But I have some Captain America books I picked up, some fun graphic novels, and I just thought I'd give a lowdown on some books I'm looking forward to, and also maybe a preview of some videos I'm hoping to do in the future on this channel as well. So I had another video planned, but in order to feel like I can do that video right, I wanted to give it a little bit more time to do some more research. So hence doing this video instead. So, this can be fun too. I feel like, there are so many comic book haul videos, which is why I don't necessarily just do a haul, but hey, I'll also talk about some other books that maybe otherwise you maybe want not have talked about in a review format. So there you go. But I'm going to talk about first some comic books I picked up regarding Captain America. I was picking up a lot of Captain America books from the dollar bins, things like that, just because, like many, I was excited by Captain America Winter Soldier. So I was just going through some dollar bins and some comic books that I was trying to finish run. Some I just was interested in maybe doing reviews of, including this issue of the good old Sam Wilson Captain America, when him facing down of U.S. agent, and of course it seemed very timely with the show coming out. It seemed like it'd be a good book to kind of go back on and get. And similar with this being a Captain America book with Taskmaster, also really do love that cover. Taskmaster to me has one of the all-time greatest costumes. I guess it's a bit of a cheat because he kind of combined all the different costumes. Steve Rogers Captain America, I did read this, but I fell off very quickly because I wasn't a huge fan of it. But maybe we'll go back and see if this is any good, because I was not, I just did not click with me, unfortunately. But then I have some older Captain America books, some much older, some not so old, but another one from the Dollar Bin. And this is from Mark Waid's run. Ooh, this is already kind of, and this is, I read a lot of Mark Waid. I have not read his Heroes Return run all that much. So I saw this, I do like that cover. And I was like, hey, sure, why not get it? And also this is with Garney art as well, rough Garney art. But the ones I was really most excited to get back, I went to my old local comic book store where I grew up and picked up some of the holes I was missing in my Ed Brubaker Captain America collection. And this is issue number 43. Again, nothing necessarily really special happens with this. It was just one I was missing in issue number 607. And I think I'm just missing one, and I have every Ed Brubaker's Sean Phillips Captain America run from that initial run, because then it becomes Captain America Bucky or something like that. But from that initial kind of grouping until it hits about 618 or 19, and then it comes back to number one with he gets a new series, I think, with Steve McNiven. I have some of those, but I've been trying to collect that for such a long time, and I've been holding out to find some of those in a dollar bin, but haven't had the luck. So just like, I'll bite the bullet and pay $3 instead of $1 for those. But I was happy to pick them up. Not a key for anyone except for myself, again, but that's typically when I buy comics, I buy them for myself, not what other people think. Also picked this one up because I have a soft spot for the crazy electric shield that Captain America had, and this is the first appearance of it, I guess, maybe, I don't even know. But it's what it says on the cover, and covers don't lie in comics, right? They always tell us what happens. So I wanted to kind of go back and check it out and see like how well it was used. I do think it can be used well. Actually, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes Avengers cartoon, I thought actually used the energy shield in ways that wasn't horrible. So I'm wondering how it holds up there. I'm also kind of happy to get this book. Again, I mentioned I have not read a lot of the Heroes Return stuff from Mark Waid's run, but I was able to get issue number 1. I do really like this cover. This is a cover I felt like I've seen so many times, but I've never owned myself. So it is very classic Captain America. And I do think Mark Waid, I loved his run with Chris Samney, so I thought I'd go back and check those out. Now let's get some older, even older Captain America, some Jack Kirby Captain America and Falcon. This is issue number 150, and it's kind of beat up. I got it for, it says $6, but it was half that, so it was $3. again, nothing special. I do love like the classic Silver Age comic in this, and this guy's costume is all types of awesome. I don't even know who that character is. The Stranger. Well, there you go, Death by the Stranger, and he's a new super powerful character. So he's got to be cool. But we know with that outfit, he's he's got the classic mustache. That's everything. But it's like I said, it's beat up pretty badly, but I don't care. I feel like that gives comics more life in a way. Like when you feel like you have a book that's been read and people enjoyed it, it makes me wonder like what is that comic story? Like where did it come from? Who read it? Like how did it end up in my hands? I enjoy that kind of pontificating about books. One of the books, probably the one I spent the most of. I don't like spending a lot on books, but I saw this and I was like, I'll pick it up, and it's nothing hugely special, but it is Captain America. This is when Jack Kirby came back to work on Captain America, and this is the first issue of the Mad Bomb storyline, which is quite good. It's one of the best Captain America storylines that Jack Kirby did, and this is him writing and drawing, and it's I think it's not necessarily holding up exactly well, but I think for the ideas there and Jack Kirby's art is always fantastic. Well, for the majority of the time, this is before I feel like it fell off a bit, but him drawing Captain America and that cover to again another iconic image. I feel like with this book, I know people are made. There's rumors going around that potentially that the Falcon Winter Soldier had a Mad Bomb storyline in it. The Mad Bomb, for those that don't know, it's like this bomb that literally looks like a brain that goes off and causes people to go crazy. But they axed it because of COVID, which I can kind of get. And I kind of do feel like if you watch Winter Soldier and Captain America, or I say Captain America, but Falcon and Winter Soldier, which will now be Captain America and Winter Soldier. Spoiler alert, I guess. If you don't have the internet, I don't know how you missed that spoiler. I do feel like there probably was a storyline that does feel missing that would help fill in the little pieces, but who knows. And then I got some facsimile editions. I think Mile High Comics or one of those stores was having a sale and included facsimile editions, which I feel like are rarely on sale, at least in my experience. But they had this, which was Captain America 117, which is the first appearance of Falcon. And I was interested to see like what he was like when he first came out. And I love facsimile editions because you get the exact comic, except that you don't have to pay whatever price it is. I paid $4 for this compared to whatever it would be if I actually bought the real thing. This I actually think I thought I owned this comic, but I guess I don't. This is 354. This is when U.S. Agent came back. And became U.S. Agent. I forget exactly, but I do really love that cover. And again, it was only like $2, so I was happy to pick it up. One of the facsimile editions I actually been really looking forward to getting, but I hadn't yet. But I finally bit the bullet because I was able to get it pretty cheap. Was the first appearance of Vision. One of my all-time favorite covers. I love that cover. It's been homaged a lot, and rightfully so. Picked up some a Batman facsimile edition. Actually, was just recently reading this, and some of these facsimile editions I do plan on starting a new series. Well, a new old series. I used to have a series for Geekcast Radio called from the long box. Can't even remember my own name for it. And literally it was just me going to my long boxes, picking out a comic and reading it. And it could be random. It could be something I read before, and just getting that experience of just picking a random book. Because how I got into comics literally was going to the comic book store, diving into the dollar bins, picking out whatever, bringing it home and reading it. And just I might have like issues 15 and 18 and 33, but just being able to read something, I know it was, and getting some acclimation into it. And I kind of like that, just jumping in and knowing nothing else, just having that issue, jumping in and see if we can use inferencing and all those classic skills that we learned in school to figure out what's going on. So I feel like I'll bring that back, and I have some planned already. And also kind of getting into my fandom of comics, where it came from. For reading, watching my videos, you have a better idea of, where my thought process originates, because I think that is kind of helpful. Another facsimile edition, old X-Men comics, X-Men number 4. I don't know if there's anything special happens with this at all, but I have not, my huge blind spot for me are any of the X-Men comics that came before Giant Size of X-Men. I have not read any of them. I just had no interest, to be honest with you. but I thought, hey, maybe give it a shot and see how it holds up. Another one I picked up was this. This is Amazing Spider-Man 101, another facsimile edition. And this is, I think, the first appearance of Morbius, who I do like that character mostly because of the animated show back in the 90s. And interesting how much his look has kind of stayed the same, and at least compared to this and what he was in the cartoon. And of course, I think we're getting that movie, maybe, potentially. It was supposed to come out, got pushed back. I have no interest in the movie, but the comic was only like $1.50 or something like that. So I'm all for that. And then lastly, Marvel Fanfare number 10, which I think is supposed to be the first appearance of Black Widow. And I have interest in kind of going back and looking at some first appearances in the sense of seeing like how much characters have changed. Like I did a video on Captain America number 1, and something similar to that, obviously with a less historical retrospective. But I really, I don't really know how much Black Widow has changed since she first appeared. So I thought I'd give this a shot. And Marvel Fanfare, it's a comic that's not even existing anymore. So there you go. I'm going to take a break from single issues and talk a little about some graphic novels I picked up. Some of these are recent, so I just actually got them recently, but some of the older ones are ones I picked up from Ollie's that when I was back in my hometown. And Ollie's has a lot of great comic books. Randomly, you never know what their selection is going to be like. They're like an outlet store, so they kind of buy up other places that are going out of business and sell things for really cheap. So I was able to pick up some cool books, but this one I paid full price for. But this came out this year. It's Muhammad Ali. I'm gonna play Kenesha, but it's about his fight with George Foreman, and it's from Titan Books. And as you can see, it looks very cool. Muhammad Ali is one of those figures that does fascinate me. I've enjoyed a lot of documentaries about them. Like All the King's Men is one of my all-time favorite documentaries. There was actually a Muhammad Ali book done by Dark Horse a few years ago, which is phenomenal. And I feel like this has a very similar art style to that. So I thought I'd give it a shot, and actually got a really good price on this. And I was interested in picking up some 2020 books. It also, the other thing was is that it's taking real life photos from a photojournalist and utilizing those that have never been seen before. So kind of cross promoting two different mediums of photojournalism and comics into one book. So I'm wondering how well that's going to work out exactly, because it would be kind of weird, seeing photos and video in comic book next to each other, but maybe it can work. A book that I actually got from the Ollie's was an omnibus, and this is Silver Age Suicide Squad, which I have not read anything like this, and this is typically a $50 omnibus. It's pretty, it's good size, but I got it for $9, and I've not read a lot of Silver Age comics, but this gives me a good reason to do that and to check them out. And especially because Suicide Squad, I feel like it's always looked at as a more modern team. So I'm going back to this time to see like what it's like before you have Harley Quinn is a major facet of the team, and it looks fun, really. Right, and I think the coloring, it does seem like it's classic coloring. I know a lot of omnibuses, they recolor it. I don't know for sure, but my guess is this is not recolored, but that's my hope. Nothing is said on the cover, but we'll see. Another new book that I picked up, and because I'm a huge fan of David F. Walker. I think he's a really underrated writer. This is The Black Panther Party. It's about the history of the Black Panther Party, as the title would suggest. And I'm a big fan of nonfiction comic books, so I got to pick it up and see if it's any good. So, and what was it? Judas and the Black Messiah came out this year, which is also about the Black Panther Party. That's a great movie, nominated for Best Picture, rightfully so. And this is a very different story because this is more of an overlook rather than focusing on particular people. But I think, getting a type of history that we don't necessarily see otherwise. So, the Black Panther Party, and it's, like I said, it's written by David F. Walker with art by Marcus Kwame Anderson. So I probably will see this as part of a Graphic Thoughts video coming up relatively soon. Another graphic novel I got from, the last graphic novel I picked up was from Ollie's again. And this is Will Eisner's The Spirit, but this is Darwin Cook, which was like to me, I wanted to read more, more of the Spirit, and Darwin Cook is one of my all-time favorite, is probably my all-time favorite artist. And then you got this cool cover that kind of like, I don't know if you can tell, but it comes out. I don't know. It's like one of those crazy cutout covers, which I don't see very often for graphic novels. And then on top of that, you get some great Darwin Cook art, writing the Spirit, one of the most classic comic book characters of all time. And this was only $6. So I was like, hey, you know what? It's worth it for Darwin Cook, and could add this to the collection. And I've read the first volume of, at least one volume of Darwin Cook's work on the Spirit, but I just got it from the library. I don't know if it's this one. It was a very different cover. So I don't know. I'm really excited to read this, although I have not read it yet. I've had it for over a month, but hey, I've had a lot of other stuff to read. But let's look at some other books I was able to pick up. And these books were all from, rarely enough, Books A Million, and they weren't graphic novels, but they were single issues. Yeah, I went to Books A Million, and they had a number of comics for sale that were single issues, and they ranged in price from like $1 to, I think the most expensive one I saw was like $12, it was like a random Walking Dead cover from, I think it was an exclusive cover that was in a bit one of those loot crates or whatever. But most of them were $1 or sometimes even cheaper. So I went through, there was like 6 different bins, and just picked up some random books, and actually ended up picking up a lot of Savage Dragon books. And I don't even know why. I own like 3 Savage Dragon books, but there was just a bunch of them, and the covers kind of hit my eye, and I'm thinking, most of my old comics are all Marvel. So I thought, if I want to do that series about old books, maybe picking up some old Image books would make sense. And a lot of my Image books that I have from that early 90s period are just actually books my brother had, but kind of left and I took from him. So I thought, hey, maybe I'll look at some of these old Savage Dragon books, see how well they hold up, especially with someone who really has limited experience with Savage Dragon. This is on issue number 5. And I'm always a big fan of reflective covers. They can be overdone, but I don't know why they always work for me, which is why this cover did. This is issue number 20 of Savage Dragon, which is still going today. You got to give them credit. And then I guess, and this is issue number 26. I'm guessing focusing on the same character as that. I don't know. It's a similar helmet at least. And then some other books I picked up, and I mentioned with the Spirit, I got it because of Darwin Cook. And similar with this cover, this is from Justice League United, number 7 from the New 52, with a cover from Darwin Cook, and that's why I picked it up. It's only $1. And Darwin Cook, you're not getting any more Darwin Cook covers. I don't own this, and him doing a team like this, I'm like, perfect. I will definitely snag that. I'm all about that. Also picked up Spencer and Locke, number 1, and I was actually surprised that this was there. I do really like this series. I've never owned any of the physical copies of it, but I was like, hey, number 1, that's kind of cool, and maybe I'll pick up I know my local store actually has some of the more recent ones, but this basically is Calvin and Hobbes, but older, and as like a crime story, but it ends up really working. If you like Scout's Honor that's out right now, it's from the same author, same creator as that. So I do really like that series. And then also got Sin City. And I know Sin City has been released in a lot of different formats, but this is issue 6 of A Dame to Kill For. And I thought that would be kind of a cool book to look back on. I own some Valiant stuff, but not a lot. I've never read really much of the 90s Valiant, but this looked kind of cool. So I picked up Exo Man of War, issue number 27, but it has Turok. And when I think Turok, actually my first exposure to Turok, the character, was the video game for N64. So I just like, oh man, I didn't honestly even know he was a comic book character at that time. But it's another issue, number 14. So reading some classic. I'm enjoying the current Exo Man of War series, although I feel like it stopped. I don't know what happened to it. And then I'm going to get to some Ed Brubaker comics. Is how I'm going to finish this up. But some other ones I got from the Books A Million were issue number 4 of Criminal and issue number 6. And I think the cool thing about Criminal is often that you can kind of pick up a lot of these issues, and they're often very self-contained. So that's why I picked these up. And then I picked up another Frank Miller book, but not Sin City, but him doing RoboCop, which I didn't know this was a thing, but I'm excited to read it because, you know, he helped write, I think, the script of RoboCop 3, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know when this came out. I knew nothing about this. This is from Avatar. Um, it just kind of it just struck my eye. I'm like, ooh, Frank Miller doing RoboCop. I know he did the series in the '80s with Walt Simonson, but this one looks like he's writing and drawing. He at least did the cover for it, so I've not cracked it open yet, but I thought that would be fun. I do love the RoboCop movies. It's really good. This one I knew nothing about. It struck my fancy a little bit. One Hit Wonder from, I don't even know what comic book this is, comic book publisher. But I have never heard anything about this, but it looked kind of cool. And I don't even know if this is a one shot, it's an ongoing series, but we'll see how it goes. That's a cool thing about the Dollar Bin, just to see. And then lastly, another Valiant book, but this is Predator versus Magnus, the robot fighter. So, you know, I know Predator right now is owned by Marvel or Disney, and I thought, like, hey, here's an old classic crossover. And Predator has fought everyone from Batman to Magnus to Archie. He gets around those issues. I think I'd like to do some deeper dives into them, and we'll do some videos. I don't know if any of those you feel like would make better videos than others. Let me know in the comment section below, because maybe that'll be the ones that I focus on first. Books I picked up were actually got some Kickstarters in the mail, starting with Project Big Hype, this is the first time I've ever actually got a manga through Kickstarter, and this is like anthology series. It has a lot. It's like over 20 different stories in here. This is jam packed with a variety of different art styles. Most of them I think are pretty good. I've not read all these stories yet. I've kind of flipped through it though, and I was very happy with, you know, how well they put this together. It's quite a good job. It's a really solid package. Like if I didn't know any of it, like I wouldn't have no idea this is like a Kickstarter independently published. Now I've gotten some other Kickstarter books where you're like, this is, you know, a little janky. This is not that. This is, well, this is professionally done. So kudos to them. Excited to read this. And then I also got from Kickstarter Next Door. This is from Zachary Quintus. He does the comic book bookcase website, and so I was doing a Kickstarter, so I participated in that as well. So happy to check that out. Have not got the chance to read it. A book that I was really happy to pick up, and I got it for very cheap. But it's a key for me, as I like to say, and it's Exiles #1. I love this series. I've been looking to pick up #1 for a very long time. I've never found it in the wild. Like I found it online, and this was like $5. I think I got it for $3 with my discount. This I got from my local comic book shop, and I never pulled the trigger because most of the time it was only $5. But like I'd end up paying the same amount of shipping as I would for the book if I got it online, which just seems wrong. So I've just been waiting to pick it up and find it in the wild, and I finally did. So this is one of my all-time favorite series, and it's one of those books that helped me get into comics because I love the idea of like other dimensions within the Marvel universe, and it did just that and has some of my favorite characters like Blink and Morph. I don't have all that collection. I think out of the 100 issues of that run, I think I have about 70 or so, and one was the earliest one I haven't picked up. So that was an exciting day for me. Now to get to the books I was the most excited about picking up. And all come from my favorite writer, Ed Brubaker. Before I get to that, actually, to do a little bit of detour, I talked about I had other Kickstarters. I just couldn't find them. I did find them as I was looking for my Ed Brubaker book. This is Sleep Stories. This is from Michael Walsh, who is doing right now Silver Coin for Image. And I actually backed this before even reading Silver Coin. It looked interesting to me, and I was impressed by his art, and rightfully so. And this is actually available on his website as well if you want to read it. And this is necessarily like one continuous narrative. It's kind of like a fever dream in a way, like literally sleep stories and kind of these nightmares that he has. And it's grotesque at times, in a good way, in the sense of like it's going to turn your stomach. But I love how the use of black in this, because it definitely sets the mood very well. I have read through this actually a few times just because I just love looking at the art. So this is one of all the Kickstarters I've gotten. I don't know how many Kickstarters I've backed at this time. I kind of go in and out. Like I'll back a lot for a few months, and then I'll kind of like, okay, I need to cut bait a little bit, and then I'll go back again. But this is one of my favorite things I've ever gotten from Kickstarter personally. So the first thing I picked up in my Ed Brubaker collection to add to it was the entire series of The Fade Out. And I love this series, and I was recently doing one of my, I don't even remember what video it was, but I was talking about other books to read and how if you can read the fade out in issues, do that because it has great back matter. And that's the case here. And this is actually also uh, signed by the colorist, Elizabeth Breitmeister, who doesn't do the colors anymore. But I was really happy to see. I think that's her signature. It says Elizabeth on it, so I assume that's who it is, or it could be someone who owned it that was named Elizabeth. Either or, happy to have their signature. So that was cool to find. I got these from eBay, but I got a really good price on this. I think I picked them up for $15 for 12 issues, which I don't understand when it comes to comic books. Like, to me, what I love about comic book speculation is that it's usually geared towards stuff I could care less about. So then I can get books like this for really cheap. So yeah, that helps me out a lot. So this is, for the series, it's a pulp, like Hollywood story. It involves this writer who kind of gets caught in between a murder and also deals with like the blacklist of the time. It takes place in the, the 50s, and it's very much in that era. And if you enjoy other Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker stuff like Criminal or Kill or Be Killed, it's not as, I would say, action packed because you're seeing it through the perspective of a writer. This is not a criminal per se, but it's just really well done, really finely told, and great characters. That classic noir feeling that you want. It's more of the drama side. 12 issues of this I was able to pick up. So also great covers from Sean Phillips. All these character covers. So this is issue 6. These are not in order, I'm realizing as I'm doing this. But and you would also see in the series too, like Sean Phillips draw like real life actors, like Gary Cooper is in one issue, and other people that ilk is very much in that vein. So highly recommend this series. I was really happy to pick it up. And the reason I picked it up is because I plan on doing an Ed Brubaker career retrospective, because he's my all-time favorite creator, but there's a lot of it that I've not read. A lot of his work I have not read, or have not read in a while. So that, I want to go back and fix that. And I have a YouTube channel now, so why not bring other people on that journey? The hard part, though, is a lot of his work, a lot of his early work is actually challenging to find. It's actually quite rare. It's not available digitally. It's not been collected in years, or maybe never been collected. But again, luckily, eBay, and again, the benefit of liking comics that apparently people don't see any money in, and able to pick them up despite the fact that they're rare and hard to find and potentially really good. One of the comics I was really happy to pick up was At the Seams, #1. And this came out after he did the graphic novel, or the series Low Life, which is one of his most acclaimed works early on. And then this came out with issue #1. This was, I think, nominated for a Harvey Award and for Best New Series, but then we never got another book after this. And the other cool thing about this is that it's actually also drawn by Ed Brubaker as well. So I think people realize that Ed Brubaker was a writer and drawer, an artist, and of course much more of a better writer than he was an artist, which is probably why he doesn't do that anymore. And then one of his really early works, one of the first things he did was in the pages of Dark Horse Presents. He did the story An Accidental Death, and it was collected in 3 issues of Dark Horse Presents, number 65, number 66, and number 67, which is kind of a cool cover too, with I don't know who with a predator, and I don't know who the other character is on that side, but it was all collected in those 3 issues, the old Dark Horse Presents, which is not a thing anymore. But I couldn't find it collected anywhere. I couldn't find it digitally. I was like, oh man, I can't do this if I can't get some of these earlier works, because like, how am I gonna do a retrospective when the first comic I do is like from his 2000, like when he's already written and done a lot of books already. Luckily, I was able to get this too for like $8. And I'm like, sure, why not? I'm never gonna find these in the wild, or rarely, or am I gonna get all 3? I don't even know people even realize they exist. But again, I'm really happy. Again, I don't know the rarity of these. Dark Horse Presents was never a huge print and run when it was coming out. I mean, probably, well, it was in the 90s, so maybe it was not too bad. But I was just happy to pick it up, give it a chance to read, because I couldn't read it digitally, and it just makes me realize too, when it comes to comic books, that how bad they are when it comes to preserving their works. Like Ed Brubaker, one of the best comic book writers of all time, and a lot of his works that you think that would be collected or you could sell, you could put his name on them and get something for them, and they're just lost in the ether. You can't really find them at all. So I was happy to pick him up though. So I'll look for that coming up soon. I'm going to try to do a retrospective on like starting his early career. I don't obviously want to do a review of every book he's ever written, but just some key pieces. And I figured I need some earlier work, on some things. So and this seemed like the good place to start, when you get that anthology book. So yeah, I was really happy to get all those books, and I just have, of course, a lot of reading ahead of me coming up. So yeah, look forward to other videos coming up. Like I said, we'll be kicking off a new series from the short box where I'm just be picking up random comic books and ones that maybe have some importance to me in some way and just discussing them. Hopefully people will enjoy that. And like I mentioned, the Ed Brubaker career retrospective, I'm putting it out there, so now I have to do it. So anyways, thank you for taking the time and checking out this video. I know there's a lot of other comic book channels out there, so any of you, I really do appreciate any feedback. Let me know if any of the comics I talked about, like any specific one you feel like would be the most interesting to approach, most interesting to review. I know there was a lot graphic novel wise, single issue wise. I'd be interested in hearing what people have to say. I have my ideas, but I'm open for negotiation, as they say. So, all right. Well, just remember, comics are for everyone. The key is finding the right one. Until next time, keep reading.